Greg Swan here with another little discussion of love, sex, marriage, and family. The last movie we made was pretty sexy. I hope I don't disappoint you this time because I'm going to talk about a more serious aspect of married life. Let's Let's devise a little scenario. I have been thinking about this for a few days, and I think it's a fun little metaphor. So let's get married. I don't care if you're imagining yourself as the husband or the wife. You can choose your role in this scenario. But when I speak of it, I'm going to speak as the father because, duh, this is the role I am most comfortable with. But let's put mom, dad, and two kids, boy and girl, 5 and 7, put them all in a minivan. And they are off on a voyage of some kind. They're going to the mall, they're going to the movies, they're going to McDonald's to get Happy Meals. You figure it out. My question for you is, who is sitting where? We know the kids are in the back seat because, unless they have completely taken over the marriage, that's where they belong. And if we imagine this as the typical American normal family, the nuclear family, we put mom in the passenger seat and dad in the driver's seat, and these are traditional sex roles that go back centuries, and they're imbued in religion, and they must be ridiculous and false because they've worked forever and no alternative does. This is just the silly things that people say about love, sex, marriage, family, men, women, children, all of the above. The things that everyone does cannot possibly be right. The things that every person, every successful, flourishing human life follows approximately the same course, and so that cannot possibly be right. And my alternative theory is the only one that could be true, and if you dispute anything I have to say, then you're an ignoramus and a racist and a God knows what else. I think all of this is stupid. I think it's all retarded. It's obvious that men and women have very real, biologically engendered differences, and we will not make those differences go away by proposing alternatives, by yelling at their practical manifestation, by yelling at the people who do manifest them, or by trying to silence any sort of competing arguments or ontologically based arguments. As always, I am always about ontologically consonant teleology, which means simply to make your choices in consonance with your actual nature, to choose according to your real nature, to choose accordingly, to respond appropriately to the facts of your existence. And practically speaking, politically speaking, certainly, men and women are functionally equivalent. There is no basis for making any sorts of distinctions in law about, for instance, who can vote, although I don't think voting is appropriate, but, who can express whatever political power there is in the civilization. Men and women are equal. Who can own property? Men and women are equal. Who can, enter into a marriage contract and dissolve a marriage contract? Alas, men and women are equal. I don't mean alas that they're equal, but I mean alas that they would even consider dissolving a marriage contract. But there is no basis in politics for making a distinction. But in ethics, and particularly within the context of romantic relationships, obviously we do have to make the distinction. And clearly at the level of pudenda, my pudendum, her pudenda, these are different. This difference is absolutely vital because no one trades corn for corn. I eliminate outliers of all sorts from any sort of discussion that I'm having, so I'm only talking about normal, the middle of the bell curve, normal people. I don't understand homosexuality, and it's not for me to understand it, and I don't need to understand it, but I really don't understand that sort of trading corn for corn. And in fact, in that sort of a transaction, they're not actually trading the same thing for the same thing anyway. But relationships that I have with men can be very deep, very satisfying, very long-lasting, but they're never going to be romantic because we don't have different parts, and lacking that heterogeneity, there isn't going to be any spark of love between us. There isn't any possibility for it. I am attracted to the other kind of parts, and I like it the way that my parts fit with those parts. And it's considered offensive for me to take note of these facts. Please do everything you can to get me fired. Yet more detestable practices. One detestable practice leads to another. In any case, I want to go back to this minivan because we stuck Dad in the driver's seat. Oh my God, he's consigned. He's enslaved. He has no choice. And the same thing for Mom. We stuck her in the passenger seat, and we know what's really going on. She's not really enjoying the trip. She's turned around backwards, trying to keep Junior from pulling little Sally's hair and trying to keep little Sally from pissing and moaning about it and trying to keep everybody happy and singing songs and playing DVDs and handing out juice boxes and doing all that mom stuff. And how hideous it is for both of these people to be stuck in these roles. How awful, how unfair, how unjust. We need a women's studies program. There should be a PhD in women's studies because, wow, there's so much to be studied, but even if we can't have a men's studies department at the university, we certainly should have a men's grievances industry to whine about how unfair it is for Dad to get stuck with a steering wheel all the time. I think it's interesting. Take a look at perspectives in that vehicle. There are two ways of looking at the world from that vehicle. One, Dad is looking outward. He's looking at the road. He's looking at the traffic. He's looking at the terrain. Mom is looking inward. She's looking at the universe within the walls of that minivan, and she's particularly concerned with the children, but she's concerned with her husband too, and with her own well-being, and with the well-being of the family. He is focused outward in order to get them where they're going, and she is focused inward in order to get them there alive. And again, this is completely appropriate, that if we were to switch these roles, now obviously she can drive and obviously he can take care of the kids. If they're just going to the mall and back, it's not that big a deal, but he will not do nearly as well at taking care of those children as she will, because he's just not as focused on the subtle nuances of mother tongue expression, of human nonverbal expression without father tongue. Father tongue is words, but even with words, I mean, I can put spin on my words to make you hear things that I didn't really say in the words. If you looked at the transcript, the spin wouldn't be there. All of that is there to be apprehended, and women are better at it in general. They are better at apprehending those kind of subtle social cues, even to the point of imagining things, but they're tuned into everything that's going on, and Mom is going to be much, much, much better at spotting Sally's car sickness in advance to deal with it before she pukes on the upholstery, much better than Dad is. And in the same respect, as competent as Mom is as a driver, she's simply not going to do it as well as her husband is, generally speaking. I mean, obviously there are individual differences among people, but we're clipping the outliers. We're considering the middle of the bell curve. He's got better vision. He's got better upper body control. He's got better spatial skills. He's got a quicker reaction time. He's less risk averse. In general, men are better drivers than women, and if this isn't borne out in insurance statistics, it's only because men take more risks when they're driving than women do. So let's complicate the scenario. Before we were just driving to the mall or to McDonald's, but now let's have an emergency. Let's say that there is some kind of natural disaster or conflict, like, you know, a war zone or something like that. Or let's say that Junior fell and broke his leg. And for whatever reason, we need to drive that minivan as fast as possible. We need to make a speedy getaway. Who should be driving, and who should be looking after the children? Who should be taking care of the family? And this is obvious now. This is, if you contest this, if you compete with this, I'm going to invite you to live through it, because Dad will do amazingly better at driving in that circumstance, because he can focus single-mindedly on that one purpose. He can focus on the mission-critical, what is absolutely mission-critical has to be done in order for that family to make it out alive. He can focus that intently and do that one thing, and simultaneously, he can suppress his emotional reactions until later. And Mom isn't anywhere nearly as good at any of these things. She can be masterful at taking care of Junior and calming Sally down and dealing with the blood and dealing with all the things that are going on inside that minivan, but she will not drive nearly as well as he will, and he will not take care of the children nearly as well as she will. And so it is completely appropriate for them to take these sex roles, to take these, you know, obviously biologically engendered sex roles. These are things we're born with. These are things we don't have choices about. We can choose how we express this nature. But this is our nature, and we do not get to escape it no matter how unreadable our books are. This is not something that can be cured by ideas. This is a manifestation of nature. We can think about it, we can reason about it, we can understand it, we can actually, improve upon it in the way that we do respond to these roles. But nevertheless, we're going to fall into these roles anyway because they are biologically appropriate. They are appropriate to what we are as organisms, irrespective of what we think about it. Well, I like to think about that idea of dad driving because I think it's an interesting metaphor for understanding marriage anyway. Marriage in the large, marriage altogether, meaning they meet, they fall in love, they get engaged, they get married, they have children, the children grow up, the children move away, and they're still together 50 years later, 60 years later, together until one of them dies, and really practically speaking together forever because they've devoted their lives to each other. And that relationship is driven by the man. The whole relationship, the whole marriage, is driven by the man. And it's easy to see that at the very beginning. They meet, however they meet, whatever chance encounter brings them together, or maybe he saw her and arranged to get introduced to her or something like that. He's driving this whole process. Even if she thinks that she's pulled a Sadie Hawkins on him, what's really happened is that she has put herself in his presence and hung around until he noticed her. He's driving that process. He's making all of the initial overtures. He's, making time with her, talking her up, chatting her up, trying to get her number, trying to set a date, setting that date, taking her out on the date, almost always paying for it, taking, responsibility for everything, really. And as they get to know each other, that responsibility starts to be shared, but it's always him driving this, it's always him pushing this, and certainly as they become, romantically involved with each other, the first date, first kiss, first base, second base, third base score, he's certainly driving all of that, and obviously this is, a key motivation in his doing this. He really, really, really wants to have sex, and if he's pursuing a particular woman, it's because he really wants to have sex with her. And I'm not saying that she doesn't want to have sex, but she trades in other currencies. They're both trading in two currencies, sex and devotion. And he's setting a higher premium on sex, and she's generally speaking, setting a higher premium on devotion. And again, no one trades corn for corn. Mass promiscuity, is kind of essentially trading corn for corn. You're just trading sexual friction for sexual friction, but there really is no relationship there, or there may be, a friendly, an affinity relationship, but there is no romantic relationship. There certainly is no storgic love, no love of families, no love that endures even when physical expressions of love may then be impossible. That simply isn't there. But he's the one who's driving this whole process from, the time that they meet, the time that they go out, the time that they first couple, whether that's before or after they're married, the time they get engaged. He's driving all of that. He's the one who's getting down on one knee and saying, "Will you marry me?" And it easily could be the case that she has maneuvered him into this, or that somebody else, his parents or her parents or somebody like that, has torqued him into getting down on one knee and saying, "Will you marry me?" But he has driven everything up until that point. He has been the driver of this relationship from the very beginning up until this point. And I mention this point because it's interesting to me, so we'll come back to it. Engagement. They proceed to get married. They are married together. Maybe they have children, maybe they don't. To the extent that their marriage works, to the extent that they are happy together, that they are happy to be with each other, that they get along with each other, that they're happy to do things with each other, that they have frequent and really elaborate, joyful sex with each other, to the extent that they really make love to each other, all of that is going to be driven by him. And I'm not taking anything away from her, because it ain't nothing without a woman or a girl. But if he's not driving, no one is driving. And that's the reality of marriage. When you see a bad marriage, what you are seeing is a marriage where he has stopped driving. And I'll come back to this again, because now I want to go back and talk about that engagement. What happens in bad marriages is at some point he decides that he won't drive anymore. He's been driving this from the very beginning, and driving it very hard in the initial stages of the relationship. He was driving towards sex, but driving towards love, maybe really wanted to have a family. He had things that he wanted. There were values that he was seeking from this relationship, and he pursued them avidly. And that is what makes him the driver in this relationship. The relationship wouldn't exist without him. He is the sine qua non of this relationship because it was his initiation of action, step by step, every step along the line, that advanced them to the next level in that relationship until we get to engagement, or until we get to marriage, or until we get a year or two into the marriage, and at some point, he lets go of the wheel. He decides that he's not going to drive anymore, and there can be all kinds of other things going on in this relationship. I am not absolving her, because there are things going on that result in him letting go of the wheel. It could be that she's nagging him all the time. It could be that she's cheating on him. It could be that she's disloyal to him in the sense that she criticizes him in front of other people, or she takes her criticisms of him to other people. Adultery is carrying the confidences of your marriage to someone other than your spouse. Everything after that is optional. You don't have to have sex. All you have to do is talk trash about your spouse with a stranger, and you're committing adultery. And that could be happening, or it could be that she has just let things slide, and maybe he has too. And this is something that happens after people get married. They make a real stern, stout effort to be attractive when they're in the dating game, and they're certainly looking to be attractive when they're trying to capture a mate, to get to that point that they're married to each other. But then immediately after, one or the other of them could really start to let things slide. And it could certainly be the case with him that he feels trapped, he feels caged, he feels chained. And so he will rebel against that state, not by breaking the chains, not by doing the honest thing and breaking the relationship, but by doing the very dishonest thing of going completely passive, going completely prostrate. Yeah, okay, whatever you say, we'll do it your way. If even that much, if he's even that communicative. And there is a reason for this. Again, I'm not absolving anyone, and I'm not really accusing anyone. This is just a dysfunctional relationship. This is a broken relationship. But the thing that breaks it is that he's no longer the driver. He has to be the driver in that relationship. It doesn't mean he's the boss. It doesn't mean he's a dictator. It certainly doesn't mean he can order her around against her will. I mean, she's certainly free to leave him if he behaves like a jackass, but he behaves like a jackass the other way when he doesn't assert appropriate leadership in that relationship, when he doesn't drive the minivan. And you'll see this in marriages. The one I'm describing is that, just the guy going prostrate, just sitting back and doing nothing, you know, drinking beer after beer after beer or whatever, vegging out in front of the TV and literally doing nothing to sustain that relationship, giving her nothing back, not engaging with her, not making love with her. And making love is something you should be doing all the time. I mean, I'm in favor of making really elaborate love when you get naked, but you should be making love with each other all the time, teasing and talking and touching and just communicating with each other. And if that's not happening, there's a reason for it. And the reason for it, really, the initial reason for it is going to be his anomie, his pretended anomie, his expressions of indifference, his lack of involvement. And then it'll just get worse from there. But here's what really happens. Okay, so they're driving in the minivan, and all of a sudden he lets go of the wheel. Ha ha, look, Ma, no hands. I refuse to drive. He's not going to say that out loud. He's not going to be that honest, but he's going to refuse to drive. What happens next? Mom tries to take the wheel, where we can picture the disaster of that, somebody trying to drive a car from the passenger seat with no access to the pedals. This is what's really going on in their marriage, too, that if he doesn't assert appropriate leadership over that marriage, she will try to take control. She'll try to take over for the same reason that she would try to take over a runaway minivan. Because her life, her emotional life, her identity is in peril. Her family is in peril. But she can't do it. She can't lead the family because she can't lead him. And again, this is in our nature. This is the way we are, that in male-female couples, he is going to be the leader. It is going to be his role to be the dominant party. And again, it doesn't mean dictatorially dominant, but it does mean being decisive, being resolute, making a decision and saying, no, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to save our lives. What you're going to do is you're going to press your hand hard over that wound to keep it from bleeding. You're going to tell Sally that everything is going to be all right, and I'm going to drive like the wind until we get to a hospital. But he has to do that. This is his role in the marriage. And it's not her position to be meekly submissive. It is her role to support this and to work along with it. And if he's wrong, to help him understand why he's wrong. But nevertheless, it is his role to be the leader. And when he abdicates on that role, she can't replace him. She can't replace him as the leader in that marriage. All that can happen is that marriage, that minivan, will go out of control. It's going to crash. It's going to wreck. And you'll see this all the time. Another way that guys will express this, and maybe it's a response to her nagging, is that dad will suddenly decide to become way involved, over-involved in the children's lives, like a mother typically is. And now we've got mom and dad both turned around in the minivan, and one may hope that they parked before they did this, but they're both turned around in the minivan, and they're not going anywhere. But the more typical situation is that he refuses to take the wheel, and she can't take the wheel, and so the marriage crashes. And it may not be 100% his fault, but it is at least 51% his fault. Because his job is to be the leader of that family. And even when it hurts, even when it's painful, even when it's not rewarding, even when it's not what he wants to do, that's still what he has to do, especially if there are children involved. Because the family can only stay together if dad is the driver. I want to thank you so much for your time and for your attention. I'd really love to hear feedback about this idea of the runaway minivan, because I think it's decisive. Frankly, I think I could save a lot of marriages if I could get in front of people and talk to them about why he doesn't feel safe, or he doesn't feel in any way committed or obliged to express the leadership that he promised this marriage from the very beginning. And I think if we could get at that, we could probably solve every other problem in the marriage, because as soon as he decides to take the wheel, he'll drive the family where it should be going. And this would be a wonderful thing for everyone involved. So in any case, bless you. Thank you so much for listening to me. Have yourself a great day.